Today, I want to talk to you about a pen that I think is really interesting, and that is the Montblanc Starwalker. Now, before I get started, a couple of things. Last time I saw a bunch of comments that people can't hear me, so I looked up where the mic is on the iPhone, and I'm speaking hopefully directly into it. So if you can't hear me again, I apologize. I have to figure something out, but trying my best with the iPhone. The second is, I haven't done a video in a while, and there's the truth, and then there's an excuse. So I'll start with the excuse. So my excuse is, it actually took me a while to come to an opinion that I felt comfortable about with this particular pen. The real reason is just I've been lazy. I've been really busy at work and with family. I'm actually moving again for the 5th time or however much in the past couple of years. So when I've had free time, I found myself watching YouTube videos instead of making them. So that's the truth, but let's talk about the excuse. So the excuse why it took me a while to come to this opinion. Let me tell you what I was going to say about this pen. So when I first got this, I really did not like it. I got this pen from a friend who didn't like it as well, and sold it to me for a very, very good price. I just couldn't say no. And when I first got it, what I was going to say is that this is an ugly pen that lacks the history and tradition of other Montblanc pens. It's not as well made. The nib is not as pretty. And you should really just stick, if you're gonna buy Montblanc pens, you should stick with the Meisterstuck line. Since I've used it for the past few weeks, my opinion has changed a bit. This is still not my favorite pen from Montblanc, and I can understand why you see this model more in gray market situations. So if you go to Costco, for example, you've probably seen the ballpoint and the rollerball of this pen being sold there. You see it a lot on places like Joma Shop, where you see the traditional Meisterstuck line a bit less frequently. So I think there's a reason for that. Also, just in terms of how the pen is made, the other thing that I haven't changed my opinion on is that I don't think it's such a great looking pen. I think it's not as well thought out as the Meisterstuck line. I don't like the fact that the threads are visible here in the back. It makes it look a bit unfinished, even though the purpose of that is so that you can post it like this. I don't think the section is particularly nice looking, and the pen is a bit thin for what I would expect. The cap also just feels kind of short, and it feels strange that there's no sort of plating here. Just when you compare it to something like a Meisterstuck, it just doesn't, and this one's the 146, the Starwalker just doesn't feel like it's as nice of a pen. So you would assume that the retail price for something like this would be a lot less expensive. And I was surprised to find that it's not. It's actually similar in price to something like a 146. I think it's marginally less expensive, but not enough to really make you go for one over the other. And the final thing that kind of confused me about this pen is the name. So I kept wanting to call it the Skywalker, which I'm sure Star Wars would have a problem with, but then it's called the Starwalker, which is strange. Anyway, just a personal thing there. This pen is a cartridge pen. Montblanc says you can't put a converter into it. You can. It works just fine. The reason why I think Montblanc doesn't say this is compatible with a converter is because I think it actually has to do with this section. So when you use a converter, if you stick this section into a bottle of ink to draw ink, the ink gets all over these grooves here, and it makes it really hard to clean. So even though this does work with the converter, I don't think it was really designed with that in mind. So that's basically what I was going to say. Didn't like this pen, but then I started using it, and after using it for a while, what I found is that the nib is really quite pleasant. So this is very different from the way the Meisterstuck pen writes. This pen, it does not do well with free weight. So this is a pen that requires some pressure. And I apologize for the weird writing. The tripod is in my way here. So I'm trying to stick close to the mic so you can hear me, hopefully. And also, I guess I'm not one of those people who can walk and chew gum at the same time. So if I write something wrong or say something really silly, I can't do two things at once. But hopefully what you can see, and this ink is Lamy. It's turquoise, but I bought it when Pacific Blue was out, so I'll call it Pacific Blue. And that's not the pen skipping, it's I'm not aligning the nib to the paper well. This is also very similar, I've heard, to Montblanc UNICEF Blue. So this is a much cheaper alternative to that. But what I'm trying to show you and why I'm doing more of a writing sample than usual is this nib is really nice to use. I'm sorry for the misalignment. For some reason, it's just very comfortable to write with. And it somehow just makes it really easy, especially when you're printing, to write in a really neat fashion. It's not to say that you can't write in cursive. It's certainly possible. But for some reason, I really enjoy the way this pen writes when you print. So that's why my opinion of this pen changed. I still think it's ugly. I still would rather have the Meisterstuck, but it does offer a very unique writing experience. It feels very different than the 146, for example. In my opinion, the 146, because I tend to be more of an expert or more knowledgeable about Japanese pens, the 146, to me, if I had to find an equivalent or similar feel in a Japanese pen, it feels more like the Pilot 823 or 743. It feels more like the number 15 size nib. The Starwalker feels more similar to the Pilot 74, or this is the number 5 sized nib. That's not a completely fair assessment of the Starwalker. It feels like the nib because they're actually sort of similar in size, and I find they're sort of similar in the feel in terms of softness. But the reason why I say that's not completely fair is this Montblanc nib is much more pleasant to write with. So, the big question, do I think this is worth the same price as the Meisterstuck, like the 146? No, I don't. But given that this pen can easily be bought on the gray market, I think it's a very interesting value proposition, ugliness and all. I'm not a huge fan of the way it looks, but it's a unique look. It's interesting, but most importantly, this nib is really quite nice. So this is a pen I regretted buying at first, but now very happy to have this. as part of the collection, and it's actually a pen that I use more often than not. So I was surprised to see my opinion of this pen change. I don't think it's a great value, but at the real market prices, the street prices for it, I think you're getting a very unique pen, a good quality writer, and something that is very pleasant to use. So those are my thoughts on the Starwalker. Apologies again for not making a video in a while, but hope that was fun, and have a great weekend.